Avenue. This is Justin Spiro, your host. Wherever you are, however you may be listening, thank you for making us part of your day. How we looking, Ben? Producer chair, first day. We looking good today? I'm really excited for today. I'm always excited to be with you guys. I have a conga line of incredible guests on this show. We've had at least 15,000 views on all of our shows so far. I don't know where these people are, where you're coming from, but I'm grateful for all of you. We're rolling early. I love it. I'm thrilled, and thank you for your support. When we had this show kicked off, when it was just a little itty-bitty audio podcast and we didn't have any graphics, and I had a producer that was like 12 years old, and you couldn't see my pretty face, we had a little man by the name of John Wharton on this show, and it was the most popular show that we had done to that date, and probably in terms of the critical response, still to this day, the most popular Spiro Avenue show. We're running it back, this time with a little more, gadgets and gadgets and things going on in here. So with that said, welcome to John Wharton, former Detroit Red Wings trainer and a good friend of mine. Welcome into the studio, John.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you, Ben. Thanks for having me back.
We're happy to have you back, John. I got to tell you, my friend James Gorman is a huge fan of the Red Wings and has been bugging me since our first episode like 2.5 years ago to get you back. And we've had like 4 different iterations of this program. We've punted it and brought it back, punted it and brought it back. And he's been in my ear that whole time saying, I got to get John Wharton back. And I said, we'll work on it. Here we are. You're in the studio. I want to dive right into what's going on. It was sort of cooled off a little bit, but still on a lot of people's minds. The NHL culture is sort of following in the footsteps of the NBA, the NFL, with protesting, sitting out games. They seem to be a little more reluctantly doing so. What's your whole take on the NHL scene now with what's going on?
My feeling is that they're trying to keep up with the other leagues. If I go back to my time in the NHL, which was 18 years ago, it's crazy. I've been out of it longer than I was in it now. But looking back, I didn't really see the problems that they say are there now. And when I also look at it, I see 25, 26 African-American players. I see 43 or 44 players of color, of minority. And when 2002, there was probably 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And I also, I look behind the bench and I look in the locker rooms and I see, more diversity in there, which is great. More female, more people of color. So I see hockey moving in the right direction in that regard. I don't think it's moving fast enough for a lot of people. I don't think anything in life or any pro sports are moving fast enough in terms of diversity for everybody. But when I look at it, I think the NHL is making a lot of the right decisions. When they start talking about changing the blue line to black, you can call me out. I'll sit that one out. I think when you get to that level, you're creating, you're investigating an issue that just isn't there. So nobody looks at the blue line in hockey and thinks about police officers.
I didn't think about it that way until this was brought up.
Right.
And my whole take on the thing is I'm all for, anyone that is against, opening their doors to as many people as possible, as many people that are interested in a sport, I'm against them. I think anybody of good spirit would say that. But I think if you're going to make any type of gesture, it needs to be meaningful. It has to be somewhat impactful. I don't know what switching to a black line does. If you want to make impactful change, maybe like we're going to say, look, there's no rinks in, the south side of Chicago. Like we're going to put up something there and have a scholarship program or what. I'm obviously spitballing, but I like to see some tangible change, and I don't know how enthusiastic the NHL really is with this stuff, but it is good to see like at least some effort made to that end.
It is good to see. The thing that I really like, because I didn't see it in the room, and I don't think that it's a problem in the rooms. There's probably isolated incidents here and there, but in the stands, it can be a real problem. And I do like that they have initiated and they follow through with a zero tolerance policy. What happened to Smith Pelly in Washington is unforgivable. Another player had a banana thrown on the ice in his direction. That stuff, man.
It was Wayne Simmons, I think,
Wayne
when that
Simmons,
happened.
Correct,
Yep.
in Philly, I think.
Yep.
That stuff just cannot happen. It doesn't just set the league back; it sets humanity back. So I was really pleased to see the zero tolerance policy put into place in that regard.
I agree. There's just no room for that.
No.
So you've moved into a different life. You're a licensed contractor now. You got your hands dirty. You got beautiful jobs all over the place. I think
Thank you.
your intrigue to a lot of the people, at least the listeners of this show, is your past, your extensive history with the Detroit Red Wings. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, and echoed by many others, the class, not just of the NHL, but of all of sports in that time frame, 90s to early 2000s, put them right up there with the Yankees. I mean, 1A and 1B. You had a close and personal see experience of this day-to-day for 12 years, correct?
Correct.
I got that right, from 1990 to 2002. Yep. So many stories we could dive into. Just give me a little bit of background on, let's start with the Russian Five. We had a lot of requests to bring up the Russian Five. I think they are perhaps the most endearing and continuing legacy that you can extract from that era. Mm-hmm. You were there when it started. I believe it was October 27th, 1995.
In Calgary.
Calgary.
Yep.
3-0 win. Yep. Scotty Bowman deploys all five. Do you remember the lead up when it was announced that Bowman, did he put a little piece of paper on the board in the locker room? When was that revealed to you, and what was the reaction?
Dave Lewis would come in and put the lines on the board. There was
assistant coach for you.
Assistant coach. Yeah. There's a lot of talk, and obviously there's a lot of different line changes in practice. So leading up to, and if you've ever been to an NHL practice, there's for four offensive lines, and maybe five will practice, but for four offensive lines, there'll be a powder blue jersey for one line, a red jersey for another line, an orange jersey. So we started to see the five, I think at the time, they were five gray jerseys hanging in each of the Russian players' stalls in practice for about 3 or 4 days straight leading up to that trip to Calgary. So we started getting an idea that I think he's going to put them together. I think leading up to it, there was a lot of talk about it, and they had played together a lot in practice. But when we started to see the line, the jerseys hanging in the stalls for each individual player, because that's the line you were on that day. Before that, we would see, Doug Brown with two of the Russians, or and we saw that in the later iterations. He was actually nicknamed Brownoff because he was kind of the sixth, the Russian sixth man. So we started seeing some lead up to that in practices, and it was funny because we'd see all five of the gray jerseys together, and then we wouldn't see them.
But they were practicing together, right?
They were practicing together,
okay.
But then they wouldn't for a couple days, and we're like, what's going on? But that was Scotty Bowman. He was always keeping people guessing. And then that morning in practice in Calgary, when Dave Lewis put up the lines for that night and obviously the defensive combinations, we knew that they were going to come together and play that night. We had no idea how dominant they were going to be that morning, but I think as a team, I think we were excited to finally see it come together.
And it was incredible because you see when teams shuffle lines, I know like the Pittsburgh Penguins were notorious for it this past season, constantly shuffling their lines,
right,
trying to get something going. And it can take months, even years for guys to get chemistry. They were good that night. They
Correct.
Debuted October 27th, 1995, and they were a very good line on October 27th, 1995. Yeah. They were on the ice for 2 of the 3 goals in that game. They were the reason, including the goaltending, that Detroit won that game. What was there any type of fire? Was it like there's that story with the Fab Five for Michigan basketball where they see them listed, Steve Fisher, the coach at the time, lists all 5 on the board, and the players all say, oh, it's going down today, was I think Jalen Rose's quote. Was there any buzz about that when it was actually formally announced that those 5 are together? What was the reaction?
There was buzz. I think there was a greater media buzz around it because it was, it was a novelty thing. The 5 Russian players had never played together in the NHL. So, but we had, like I said, we had started to see it, and then we didn't see it, and then we'd see it, and then we wouldn't see it. So we were like, we didn't know if it was going to happen or not inside the dressing room. So when it finally did happen, it was like, all right, let's see what they got. We actually we knew what was going to happen. We knew their style of puck possession and not letting the other team touch the puck for shifts at a time, not seconds at a time.
Right.
But the opposing team, you're in the NHL and you don't touch the puck for an entire shift. That says a lot about the Russian Five. It's the skill level at that level is incredible, and you got guys who've been playing the game since they were 3 years old and can't touch the puck. So we were excited, but we were also expecting to see what we saw.
Yeah, which is, the fact that it clicked so fast was shocking to maybe people that weren't close to it, but, someone like you that was in there every day, maybe not so surprising to you. I remember when they traded for Larionov, who at the time was a 34-year-old center. They traded Ray Shepard for him.
50-goal scorer.
Yeah, and he was like, I think, averaging 35 or 40. He was a big-time goal scorer, averaging 35, 40 goals somewhere in that ballpark, and had reached that 50 level at one point. People thought, for this 34-year-old Larionov who didn't have the gaudy numbers, but, Scotty knows a lot more than dopes in the free press or dopes like me. Maybe not you, but dopes like me.
He knows a lot more than me, I'll guarantee you.
He knows a lot more than most people, John. But I will say that was something that even as like a kid, I was probably like 7 when that trade. I remember Detroit fans at the time, my dad listened to 11:30 at the time, WDFN Sports Radio, were going nuts about the Ray Shepard trade. Like they were so mad about the Ray Shepard trade, and it's like, Scotty knew. I thought the way they clicked was just unreal, and the documentary on them, they've been so well covered now. Talking specifically about, in my opinion, the best player on that line, and we'll get to this in a second, my opinion, the best player on that team in your era was Sergei Fedorov.
100%.
You agree?
I agree.
You jumped right ahead of the question, John.
100%.
We're totally welcome here, by the way, because you're in friendly waters here, my friend. But I'll tell you, and I think we talked about this once before, but one of my best friends is a player for the Penguins now, Jack Johnson. Right. He debuted for the LA Kings in 2008, and he had gotten eliminated with the Michigan Wolverines in a tournament in Denver, and Michigan flew home, and he flew west back a little bit farther to LA, played in the NHL 2 days after his last college game. It's almost unprecedented. And we were lucky enough to go. We had a pact when we were kids. Like I said, if you ever make it to the league, I'll be there for your first game. I'm dropping everything. So I flew out, and the ownership put his family and my family up in a suite. It was really cool. And Robitaille just walks in. Now, anyone that knows me knows, like, Luke Robitaille is like one of my 5 or 6 favorite players ever. Just loved him. And I didn't, I knew he
had my son Luke's favorite player of all time.
Loved him. Doubt. Just the guy, guy scored dirty goals and just knew where to go.
Yeah.
And so I loved him. I had no idea he would be there. I knew he had the Kings affiliation, but he just walks in the door. Couldn't have been nicer. Just the nicest, most humble guy. Just couldn't have imagined a nicer guy.
Right.
And I asked him. It wasn't the first thing I said, but after you're sitting with him for 20 minutes, I just said, I called him Mr. Robitaille, which he laughed. Yeah. It's, come on. I'm not like 75 years old. But I went, Mr. Robitaille, big fan of yours. Thanks for 2002. That was like the best, summer of my life, and that was just so fun. But I did ask him. I said, you played with all these Hall of Famers. You were one of them. Who is the best player on that team? Just pure talent, not who scored the most goals. Like, if you had to win, the way I framed it was if you had to win one game. Right. And he said Sergei. He said he would have to take Sergei. Yeah. All the respect he had for Yzerman, the other guy, Hasek even. He said Sergei was the best player on that team. You agree?
I do agree. I watched him in practice every day, and I watched him in game. He got accused often of taking nights off. I'll say 2 things about that. Every player takes nights off. It's impossible to play 82 games, on average of about 3 per week. Sometimes 4 per week, and be 100% on every night. But if some players, I'd say most players, take a night off, you don't notice. But when Sergei Fedorov
the gap is significant.
The gap was so big that when he took a night off, and they don't consciously go out there and say, fuck it, I don't have it today.
I don't have it.
I'm gonna. It's an energy thing, and it's impossible to get that energy for 82 games in playoffs, and that's why I started, with Scotty Bowman after I talked to him into this, is starting to rest players so that we peaked at the right time, and we can talk about that in a minute. But when Sergei took a night off, and it wasn't intentional, when he had an off night, it was glaring. If Darren McCarty had an off night, and no disrespect to Darren, because with what he was God-given, he probably did as much or more than anybody on that team, worked his butt off. But if he took a night off, you didn't really notice. You know what I'm saying? That's the point I'm trying to make. And again, no disrespect to Darren. I know he meant a lot to our team and meant a lot to the city. So, but with Sergei, he was so good. He was so explosive. He was so powerful, and he was so skilled that if he was off just a little bit, it stood out.
Do you think he wanted to stay? Because you guys, I know you left in the same offseason. You two both, you've both left in after 2002. Do you think he wanted to stay?
Scotty, me, and Sergei. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. You were probably the biggest of those three.
No. I do, and I spoke with him a great deal out in Anaheim after he left, and he said he really wanted to stay. He tried to stay. He couldn't get it done. So that is, that's something between the management and the agent and the player, which I had nothing to do with and wasn't privy and still not privileged to any of that behind-the-scenes information or discussions. But he definitely wanted to stay in Detroit.
The story as we know it, and you can correct it or shrug if you don't know, but the story as we know it is that he was shopping himself around, had a number in mind, and Detroit had made him an offer, and he held off. Didn't accept it right away. Didn't say no, didn't say I'm gone, but just wanted to take his time and look at his options. Then he came back so many days later, not that long, 5 days later, whatever it was, a week later, and said, okay, I'll take it. And Mike Ilitch rescinded the offer because he resented him declining the initial extension offer, which Mike Ilitch thought was fair. Is that consistent with your understanding of how that went down?
Consistent, but probably more information than I can
verify. Fair enough. Yeah, but Sergei told you he wanted to stay.
He definitely wanted to stay.
Do you retire
his home was here. His parents were here. He definitely wanted to. His brother was here, and
Fetter, right?
Fetter was here. He definitely wanted to stay in Detroit.
Do you think they should retire his number, John? I think he belongs up there.
Also, 1,000%.
Yep.
I think he belonged in the rafters at Joe Louis.
Yes.
It was a shame that building went down before his number went up. I think he definitely belongs. As how many are up there now? 9.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it. Yep.
He's definitely one of the 10 best players in organization history. I understand there's politics. I understand there's hurt feelings. I understand all of that. But if you're going to retire jersey numbers and you're going to award somebody based on their contributions on the ice or on the court or on the field, it should be decided 100% by their contributions on the ice, on the court, or on the field. So I don't think it's a no-brainer. I also don't think it's going to happen.
You don't think it's going to happen?
I don't.
Because there's a feeling that there's a thawing there, that the grudge was primarily with
I hope I'm wrong.
Mike and Marion. But, Marion at some point is going to die, because we all are. Not to be morbid.
We all are.
At some point she's going to pass. Obviously your husband already did. And the perception is that Chris Ilitch doesn't have this animosity towards Sergei Fedorov. He was more like a peer in terms of, age and demographic and whatnot. But I think it's a travesty. They had at LCA Sergei Fedorov night, I think 2 years ago, and the whole thing was, maybe it was at the Joe, the last year at the Joe, I can't remember. But he literally just dropped the puck at the ceremonial face-off, and they played some clips of him at intermission and during certain stoppages in play. Yeah. And it was just so embarrassing given the contributions. That's something maybe you give if Doug Brown's in town, or some, no offense to Doug Brown.
Marty LaPointe. And,
yeah, it's hey, he's in town.
And Steve Duchesne,
Yes, we'll have Steve Duchesne night.
I miss all those guys. Those are great guys. That whole team, the chemistry on that team, The makeup on that whole team was just phenomenal.
1990 to 2002,
right?
There had to have been one guy come through there in the winged wheel for Detroit that you just thought was a jerk, prick, asshole. Use your adjective as you please.
Uwe Krupp.
Uwe Krupp was the worst?
Krupp, yeah.
Krupp was only there for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
He made that big of a poor impression on you? He was there for a cup of coffee?
You know, he came, and I don't want to say too much, but I don't think he was completely honest with his physical condition when he signed his contract here. And then the whole dog sledding incident, and then trying to question the medical staff on his issues, his pre-existing conditions that he didn't disclose, and just again, he was a good guy. But if you're asking me, like, was there a headache or was there a problem with this person or that person, there's probably 3 or 4.
Oh, and that
and
probably
he was probably the biggest one.
Well, I can see now. You know what my next question is going to be. Since you said 3 or 4, we've only talked about one. I'm going to get to who else, but I mean, probably the Krupp thing, at least in part, is because what he's challenging was sort of in your purview. I mean, if he's challenging the medical assessment of himself. I mean, I know you weren't a doctor, but you were more hands-on.
He wasn't just questioning me. We flew him out to see, and then I went with him to see James Andrews, some spine specialists, different specialists in L.A. We flew him to the best medical doctors and orthopedic surgeons in the country, and they weren't good enough for him either. It wasn't me. It wasn't Dr. Finley. It wasn't Dr. Collin. It was
the collective.
It was the collective.
But you said he was dishonest. What was he dishonest? Like, what do you think he was dishonest? Lying about how he got hurt, or just how he was actually feeling? What did you mean by that?
Well, I don't have to be the one to tell everybody that he was found dog sledding.
A lot of people
during
don't
a rehab
that,
stint while we were on a road trip, and he's up, sled racing dogs. And that was his passion. That was him and his wife's main passion. It wasn't hockey. It was dog racing, dog sledding. So when that whole thing came to light, it started putting a lot of the pieces of the puzzle together for us as a medical team. We're like, oh, all
so
right.
You just think he didn't want to play. He just wanted to collect the check.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll say it. I'm far enough removed.
You were insinuating that we got to spoon feed this audience. You know how people are so bad. So there's at least 70% of our audience right now is like doing 3 other things. So we got to make this very clear. So you've mentioned a couple other people, in number but not in name. Is one of them Paul Coffey? I'm dying to talk about Paul Coffey.
Paul Coffey is probably as sophisticated and difficult as a hockey player can be, and I say that in a good way because he was very smart, obviously one of the best skaters of all time in the history of hockey, but in the maintenance category, and he made up with us, and he trainers and equipment guys, everybody gets tipped, and Paul Coffey was here.
He was top of the tip jar.
Oh yeah, that guy was. But you earned it. He spent 2-3 hours a day with me on my table, another 2-3 hours in Paul Boyer's office, working on his skates and whatnot. But
it's equipment manager for the uninformed. Yeah, right.
He did take care of us, but man, was he a lot of work. It was high maintenance.
So he was just needy. He wasn't a jerk. So who are the jerks then, John?
Oh, it's hard to say. I mean, hockey. There's just. You want to go on the other teams?
Well, we can get there too. We could just you had a story with Coffey where we talked about it last time. I vaguely remember it, that he got hurt and the coaching staff was. What was that?
It was in the 95 in the New Jersey series. It was even before the own goal. Scotty wasn't real happy with his defensive liability in that series, and he actually turned at a shot and it hit him in the back of the leg, which doesn't happen a lot to hockey players. Most of the time they'll take it in the face before they'll take it in the calf.
Especially in the Stanley Cup Finals,
right.
too.
They'll take it in the face before they'll take it in the calf, which means you turned your back on it. So he got hit in the calf and went down, and I went to jump over the boards, and I feel this arm on my shoulder, and it's hand, and it's Scotty. And he's like, you go over those fucking boards. You keep going right past the Zamboni entrance and don't come back. Leave him. So I said...
This is in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Correct. So I eventually did get over the boards. With Scotty was just shaking his head at me, but he was really adamant that I didn't do my job that day for Paul Coffey. But yeah, that's one of the only times that, you know, either Brian Murray is the other coach actually who hired me, or Scotty, the only two coaches that I worked for that ever tried to interfere with in my line of duty, and that's how that went down. And I'll never forget what he said. You know, if you go over those boards, you keep running out that Zamboni gate and don't come back.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
Funny now, but back then I think he was serious.
Oh,
fortunately, I kept my job.
Yeah, you know, for 7 more years.
Yeah.
So, and you left of your own accord down the line. But I mean, Scotty Bowman saying anything in a demanding tone in my ear, I think I'd be, you know, like shivers down the spine.
Got my attention.
Yeah,
sure.
Definitely would get your attention.
Yeah.
So let's keep it on Scotty. Ben, our producer, in studio for the first time with us, running the board. I think Ben has a little clip of a famous Scotty Bowman moment. We're going to try to dial it up on our digital board here. The audience should be able to see it as well. You're in the middle of this, and if we get the clip running, people will see it. And it's one of the more famous clips in that Red Wings era, where you're at the heat of the rivalry with the Colorado Avalanche. These teams hate each other. You're literally in the middle of it. You're on the bench. You're in the middle of the scuffle. We're pulling it up here. Tell me what's going on here. This fight breaks out. What's the bench saying? What's going on?
This looks like 1996-97 conference finals. That was probably game. I think this was the 6-0 game that we won. They would turn around and beat us 6-0 at McNichols in Denver a day after. But this is typical Detroit, Colorado right here. There's, you know, look at all the gloves on the ice.
It's just a disaster.
Sticks and gloves and helmets and bodies.
So I don't know if I don't know.
I think what happened here was Shanahan had laid out Corbet, and he hit his head on the ice and was injured. So at this point, it's already 6-0. But earlier on in this game, and now I know what this. I know what this is. Earlier on in this game, every time Brendan Shanahan would come to the bench, Mark Crawford was chirping him. He was saying things about his personal life and about, you know, his marriage situation and his
that's a long story.
Previous teammate, and I think you know what story.
Craig Janney, yes, yep.
So Mark Crawford was chirping about that kind of stuff every time Brendan Shanahan came to the bench off the ice, and it was really bizarre. So I, with my towel, I kept trying to flip my towel over the glass and hit that perfect coiffed hair that Mark Crawford had, and he was getting incensed. So okay,
this is it. It's getting hot now.
Here's where it is right now. He's telling Scotty right now. He's telling Scotty, you better watch your fucking nurse. He called me a nurse. Yeah, he wasn't a trainer or a therapist. He said, you better control your fucking nurse. That's what he's telling him right here. And did you see that towel whip right there?
Yep.
That's when Cruiser and Mike Foligno for Denver, they were starting to go at it. So as I grabbed Cruiser, I did one last little towel whip towards Crawford's face, and that's what really set him off. Look at him going over the glass right now. But
it's just fantastic.
A lot of people don't know what started this, and that was me flipping a towel at his lid.
So you started this fight?
I take credit for starting that.
I see. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And Scotty would say to me after the game, he's like, "What'd you say to him? He's really mad at you." And I was like, "I didn't say anything. I was just tired of hearing him what he was saying to Shanny. So I was trying to mess up his hair with the towel." I think there are somebody who was able to find. To go further back in that game and see me reaching over with the towel.
So you're towel whipping Mark Crawford in the head.
Trying to, yeah. I couldn't reach him completely,
That's unbelievable.
But he was pissing me off, and he was going like it was just like you said, you know, that it was classless to be chirping a player about his personal life as he's coming off the ice every shift in a 6-0 game. I mean, come on, man.
It's bizarre. Was he like friends with Janny or something?
Just trying to get a distraction, and I got it.
I can't believe that. We talked about my buddy Jack in that first game. His first NHL coach was actually Mark Crawford in L.A., and he actually had a good relationship with him. He did say that he's never heard so many cocksuckers and motherfuckers in his life. Like Mark Crawford will just blow you up. Even if he liked you, he'd be, well, what the fuck are you doing, you cocksucker? It was just all practice. So I'm not that surprised. And maybe he mellowed out a little bit a decade later. But like the yelling about Shanahan and the situation, ex-teammate's wife or whatever. I mean, that's just bizarre for a coach. You almost, even for a player, I feel like that's kind of touchy.
Yeah, it's hard to cross a line in that environment, especially as thick and as heavy and as hateful as that rivalry was. So it's really hard to cross a line there. But I just felt like I was just getting tired of it, and I was like, all right, he kept getting close enough to the glass that I could almost reach over and affect that hairdo, and even if I got just a couple hairs out of line, then I did. Some of the wind made it move a little bit, and then Mike Foligno started chirping me, and so I started giving him, this one, ragging on the big bucket that he used to wear when he played, and he had the Home Depot bucket going before Home Depot was going.
It's just unbelievable. Like and really in hockey, and I can't think of anything in sports in general where there's that level of contempt now. Where I think those guys really, on a personal level, didn't like each other. Even like Michigan and Michigan State, basketball, the fans are at each other's throats all day long. You're a Michigan fan, I'm a Spartan fan. Like, we don't fight, but a lot of people do. I have like friends that have ended friendships with people over stupid rivalry banter. Meanwhile, like there's a company called The Players Trunk that sells gear now, started by 3 Michigan basketball players, and all like the Michigan State players from the last 5 years are on there, and they're talking like they're tweeting at each other like, hey, this, buy our stuff, and they're all best friends. They're all having lunch. Xavier Simpson is having lunch with like Kyle Arns or whatever. Yeah. So it's like even the rivalries now, as we understand them, players, in the NBA are fist bumping before Game 7 of the NBA Finals. It's like good luck seeing like, I don't know, Valerie Kamensky go fist bump like Slava Kozlov in '96 or something. It's just not going to happen.
The Red Wing Avalanche rivalry was special because of the Chris Draper incident, for one, but also because there was so much talent on each side. So there was a lot of respect for the other team from a hockey standpoint, and then there was a lot of disrespect for the other team, who they were as people and who they thought we were as people. So it was as tough a rivalry as, obviously I've never been involved in one, but I don't think I've, I'd have to go through the list of my lifetime to think about, Red Sox and Yankees, but it's different. It's the hockey with the physicality takes it to a whole different level. So I don't know that we've seen that. Maybe some of the Flyers and Bruins, rivalries back then, and some of those the other original 6 rivalries between Chicago and Detroit. But I don't know enough about, and I wasn't around enough to feel that level of disgust for.
Not to that extent.
Not to that extent.
Don't sell the Red Sox and Yankees short, though. Remember, Pedro Martinez did throw Don Zimmer's fat face into the pavement. But no, there's no comparison really. And speaking of the peak of that was in the mid '90s. The end of it, as we knew it, was also the end of your reign there, 2002.
Right.
Going into Colorado, 2002 Western Conference Finals, down 3-2 for all of the hype that Detroit Red Wings team has received historically in that moment, all justified. I think people lose sight of how good that Colorado Avalanche team was. They were defending champions. They had multiple Hall of Famers on their own team, Rob Blake, Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg. They were absolutely loaded. You're down 3-2 going into Colorado against the defending champions who are as loaded as you are. Mm-hmm. Do you remember what the lead-up was to that game, what the mood was like going into Colorado? Were guys confident? Were they comfortable in the situation?
I think that Stevie was really dealing with it. His knee was just shredded at that point, and Pete Van Zandt and myself were, 24/7 trying to piece that thing together. And Stevie's pain tolerance is legendary, and I don't think he's wired the same. But the way that he was distracted with that knee injury and the way he led, he never really let the team feel any pressure. I know there are some captains that will come in and they like to yell and scream, and that, for me, that just creates more pressure. And I think I haven't talked to Steve about that, but I think he probably felt that also, that yelling and screaming really doesn't help anything. It's leading on the ice. And so he was really distracted with his knee problem and trying to get himself, which he did. And it's amazing that he was able to play in that series at all, let alone the Stanley Cup Finals. But so I don't, looking back on it, to answer your question, I don't feel like there was any pressure or any stress at all from the team. I think we had been successful in Denver, playing on the road in that arena especially. And I still think going back to 97 and again in 98, that the core of that team was still there, so they really felt like they had this. So looking back on it, it doesn't stand out to me as they felt like the one that does stand out was when we were down 2-0 in Colorado. In Vancouver.
Round 1.
That stands out to me because, that is one of the few times where Stevie lost his shit in the room, just berated everybody. And, I shouldn't say everybody. He dished it out where it was supposed to go, and the team responded. So
I see, John. Not to interrupt you, John.
I don't remember it being like that. I don't remember the Colorado being down 3-2 going into Denver being anything like.
So Vancouver was hotter.
Being down 2-0.
See, I heard a story.
Vancouver.
I heard a story about Yzerman, and I thought it was on the bus or something after Game 2, that he was actually really calm. Not right after the Game 2 loss, but like going either on the plane or what. It was either on the plane or on the bus, whatever it was. After Game 2. Just saying, look, we got this, we're okay. But maybe that was after it calmed down. But so he was hot after Game 2 in the locker room.
He was hot between the second and third period of Game 2.
Okay.
So
much was on the line with that team. I mean, yet Hasek took less money. Brett Hull took less money. There were so many sacrifices made. Robitaille's at the end, looking for that first title too. And I can count on one hand the time that Steve Yzerman, really let loose vocally. In the 12 years I was there, I can count. I don't even know if I can count 5. But that's not the leader he was. Obviously, the lead by example variety was more successful for him and for us. His example was pretty good. I mean, one of the best examples 100%. Ever. My perfect segue, really. My favorite athlete, not just hockey player, athlete of all time, is one of the biggest reasons why Detroit got off the mat in that series against Colorado. Back-to-back shutouts in Game 6 and 7 against that high-powered Avalanche team. Not much challenged in Game 7, fairly, but very good in Game 6. Dominic Hasek, best goalie ever. You say one of the best guys ever, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I can't. It took me a long time to find my own voice, so I can't do other people's. But people who can do the Dominic Hasek impersonation, I'll sit and listen to him because it reminds me of Dom. And he's just a special guy. He was fun to be around. He was intense at practice. He didn't want to be scored on practice. If he turned around to take a drink of water and somebody shot a puck in the net when he wasn't looking, he was pissed. He'd skate out and try to find out who did that.
Really?
Who did that?
He'd get mad in practice?
So intense. So I love people like that. But then he can flip the switch afterwards and just be a really nice guy, a really good teammate, a really good person to be around. How many Hall of Famers were on that team? How many have been inducted?
I mean, if you think Datsuk's going in,
how many have gone in 9? Since 2002?
We'd have to think about it. I don't know. I mean, it's
5,
Sergei, Fetisov, Yzerman, Shanahan. It's at least.
Dom was the only one to call and invite me to his ceremony in Toronto.
Really?
Dom.
So Dominic Hasek invited. Did you go?
I did not, because I was living in New York City at the time. But I appreciated the call. I appreciated the gesture. It meant a lot to me, and it's just a typical example of who he was as a guy and as a teammate, and very appreciative of what I did for him in his short stay in Detroit, and helped from a physical standpoint, helped get him to the level that he needed to reach to get the Stanley Cup, get his name on the Stanley Cup, which was his ultimate goal. So just a good guy.
Yeah, he fulfilled right away and got a second one down the line. Mm-hmm. I was, when they made that trade, they trade Kozlov and, some draft capital to get him. And Kozlov was a hell of a player. In my opinion, perhaps the most underappreciated from that era if you look back. Big player in the playoffs and whatnot. But I digress. I'm 14 years old when they trade for Dominic Hasek.
Right.
On the road, on vacation, happy kid. He was already my favorite player in the league, even though he was playing in Buffalo. I just absolutely loved him. And my dad wakes me up at like 6 a.m. He's listening to his little transistor radio and says, "Hey, the Wings got your boy." I said, "Who?" "They got Dom." I jump out of bed. I'm jumping up and down. That offseason, I can't imagine. You're going into your last year. I don't know if you knew it was your last year at that point, but you're going into. You did.
I did.
Okay. Well, that's another story. We'll get to that. But so you're going into that offseason, or you're in that offseason going into that season. They get Robitaille, they get Brett Hull, they get Dominic Hasek. The team was already loaded. Arguably on the brink of a title the year before. That Colorado team we talked about was loaded as well. What do you remember about the buzz going into that first training camp with those guys, and what was that like? Were they even a little bit starstruck, looking around like, holy shit, look, there's Dominic Hasek?
We were ecstatic about all the acquisitions that were made that summer, but we opened up training camp and we were doing physicals when Tim Verbeek, Pat's younger brother, came up and told us in the middle of our physicals that a plane had just flown into the World Trade Center.
Oh my God. So
that immediately, and I get goosebumps when I talk about it, because very vividly, Tim Verbeek walking up, it's like an airplane just flew into the World Trade Center. We're like, what are you talking about?
Were you at the Joe, or where were you?
We were at Center Ice Arena up in Traverse City.
Oh, okay. So you're in training camp, right?
And we had the second floor of the arena, which we had all, tricked out for our 14 station physical fitness test. And we're running through the battery of tests, and Tim Verbeek comes up and tells us that, and we're like, what are you talking about, man? So there's 4 TVs up there, so we turned them on right just in time to see the second plane go into the
so you saw it live.
North Tower.
You're sitting there with like Luc Robitaille watching the world come to a halt.
Right, yeah. And so there's guys on bikes, there's guys on treadmills getting their max VO2 down. There's guys getting their body fat percentage, and everything stopped. We just stopped everything. We didn't even finish the fitness testing that day. Stevie got the team together and got the coaches together and decided what we were going to do. We took the rest of that day off, and we go back to the Grand Traverse Resort, and there's just people with luggage because they had dropped all the airplanes out of the sky. Wherever you were in North America, you were landing. So then there were just people lined up to get into the Grand Traverse Resort because their plane, there were people. I remember people who were heading to Turkey. There were some from Yugoslavia. I mean, all over the world. We talked to these people, and they had just had to land at the Traverse City Airport because of 9/11. So yeah, with all the not to bring the mood down.
Well, it's part of the story. It's part of the story.
Of what made that team so special is because almost immediately after that, and we started to get back into practice and back into the season, and then you're like, well, we really have something special here. This is a really once in a lifetime group of players. If even before any of them went into the Hall of Fame, I remember just counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11. The guy next to me Scotty Bowman was going to be the
Yep.
11th Hall of Famer on that team, and I was, that's half the bench plus one, and that was mind-boggling. So it was, and that was probably halfway through the year that I did that little math count, and I was like, this is crazy.
And you didn't know Datsuk was going to be on that list.
I probably counted 12 because I think I included Vladdy in that list because he absolutely would have made that.
Oh,
made the Hall
he
of
would have
Fame.
walked into it. I mean, just waltzed in.
So I think I counted 12 on that list. And I was like, we have to. Like, this has to happen.
Was that the feeling that year? I mean, I'm sure it wasn't just you. Was there a sense of like, this can't fail, this can't be made to fail? We have to win, given the sacrifices made. Was that sort of what was the prevailing mood and sense in the room?
It was, just like the, like the March 26th, the fight at the Joe, there was never any talk about it. There was just a feeling, just an aura in that room about there's really only one outcome that's going to be acceptable with this team. And I think to a man and within the organization, everybody knew what that outcome was.
And you certainly you got it done. What was your experience in the immediate aftermath? You win Game 5. Joel Serena's going nuts. Brendan Shanahan buries the empty netter.
Right.
They're playing the Irish jig. The Irish washerwoman's playing over those crappy Joe speakers.
Yeah.
And my takeaway from that is whenever I rewatch that clip, which is like once a week probably, even now, it's one of my happiest moments of my sports fan life. But they show Luke Robitaille right after Brendan Shanahan scores the empty netter to basically seal that game. And he's giving the guy next to him a big hug, and he's just got the shit-eating grin on his face. He's just the happiest I've ever seen anybody. What was the sense in those first couple of minutes? Was it just like, was it any sense of relief? Was it pure joy? You said you knew you were already out. What was your emotion going through then?
I mean, there was a lot of joy. My kids were in the stands, so Luke and Brooke were on the ice, and my son Luke had his Luke Robitaille, and Luke skated around with Luke, and it's just made some memories of lifetimes, for a lot of people. Luke Robitaille included. He finally got his ring. Dom finally got his, and it was just up and down that lineup. There were, Brett got another one, and I think the Illiches were feeling validated for all that Mr. I had done in putting that team together, and there was a big sense of relief.
Yeah.
So
there has to be.
Yeah, there was just a big sense of relief, because like I said, there really was only one possible outcome for that group of players.
And they were on the brink twice. I mean, we talked about it already. Dropping those first two games at home was the key distinction in that first round.
Yeah.
Going down, it's one thing if you're on the road, you drop two, okay, we're coming back to our barn.
Yep.
But dropping your first two, so now I got to win 4 of the next 5, and 3 of them are there. I mean, that's no small task, and they're a playoff team. They're NHL players too. I don't care how good you are.
Yep.
There's more parity now than there was then, but still, I mean, it's an unbelievable accomplishment that they got off the mat. It would have been easy to, I think, panic in that moment. But I want to finish on Hasek, and then we can move on because I have to get a little more Hasek in there because that's my guy. So you guys have to bear with me. But Dom Hasek, it was a couple years later. You have some story during the lockout and the World Stars. What was that about?
There was a lockout, and Wayne Gretzky had put together this World Stars tournament.
2004.
2004. Obviously, current NHL trainers were forbidden from working that tournament, so I was asked to go along. It was awesome. I think we played 14 games or 12 games in 17 days in 12 different cities in Europe.
You were busy.
So in Asia, it was amazing. So I was busy, but we had one day off, we had 3 days off, and one of them was in Prague. And so Dom gets the guys together, and he's like, I've got special event. Again, I can't do the Dominator.
I don't know if I want to embarrass myself or try. It's like some people sing in the shower. I do Dominic Hasek impressions in the shower.
One of the best accents ever. So.
Yeah. I come here to win cup. That's what his press conference.
He's like, you guys, you got to come to this place. You got to come to this castle. So about 12 of the guys, Ty Domi was there. Martin Brodeur. There's some guys that I had heard were good. Keith Chichuk, this guy I heard were good people, and I really had to agree with him after the fact. Ty Domi is one of the coolest people I've ever met in my life.
Jerk on the ice.
And I couldn't stand him when he was at Probert 1 and Probert 2, but Ty Domi's one of the coolest people I've ever met. So he was there, and so there's like 12 of us, the massage guy and the equipment guys, and we're going out to this castle, and it takes us like 2 hours. I swear, none of our phones are working. Like, nobody's got any cell service. We're on like beaten roads, and like there's like rocks, so we had to stop and get out and move a couple rocks out of the way for the bus. And like, now we're like, where the hell are we going? So sure enough, we come out of the wilderness and we pull into this castle, and we go in. There's a huge buffet, and there's like all these tables, like 14 tables. There's 14 guys, and there's like 14 tables, and each one had the most smoking hot Czechoslovakian woman you're ever going to see in your life. And we're like, what kind of buffet is this, Dom? What is going on?
Well, it's some kind of buffet, I guess.
It was awkward, extremely awkward, because nobody could talk to anybody. But, if you could, you could.
I mean,
it was just so long story short, everybody gets back on the bus because nobody had the balls to talk to the smoking hot Czech women.
That's where the story ends.
Yeah, it was just, it's just so bizarre.
People were getting excited for that.
Dom was the team guy, though. He did put out the buffet. The food, the girls, the castle. It was awesome.
What was his end game, though? Was the idea that you guys were to bed these women?
Really, I never actually talked to him about it. That's what makes it a great story.
Let's call him. Can we get him on the line, Ben? I'm dying to know what the end game was for that.
So cool.
I like that your public version of the story is that you guys said, "Oh, thanks, but no thanks," and packed it up and left.
Yeah,
some people will not believe that, but
no,
that's what I would say too, John.
Kids' heads. All
right. I wasn't there. I'll have to defer.
It was awkwardly cool. We had a great dinner.
Yeah.
They sat down. They had dinner with us, but it was just the visual of just walking in there and just like, what is this?
I can't even imagine. Like, your life is so much more interesting than mine. Like, I just,
so crazy.
My God.
Yeah, that Dom was a team guy. He was good that way.
Yeah. Well, that's the ultimate teammate, I guess. Right. I mean, he was a good wingman, I suppose. But
he tried.
Best ever. He was the best ever.
Any failure on a teammate's part was their problem, not Dom's.
So it was interesting.
Dom set it up.
You guys had the second best goalie of all time in Martin Brodeur there too. So it's some people say number one, but they're crazy.
Another great guy.
I'm sure he's great.
He's just a superhuman man.
Yeah. It's cool to hear that the second best goalie of all time is a good guy too. So anyway, it's a perfect segue too. Like, I'm fascinated, and I have a little bit of my own experience just by proxy of being around the NHL lifestyle and what those guys are like. I know I missed you by about 6 or 7 years. You were done in 2002. Jack goes to the league in 2008. And we had in our friendship group for about 10 years, we all turned 21. We went to Las Vegas every single year, once a year. Jack obviously didn't have a lot of free time, so, he's in the league. So every year, 3 or 4 of us, we get together, bounce around different hotels. We have fun. It was actually like a pretty PG trip, believe it or not. Right. Like, I'm not doing the John Wharton where I'm just pretending that it was a PG trip. It actually wasn't.
It was PG.
It was pretty PG.
Yeah.
But we're at the Mirage one year having a blast, and Jack says, I got some teammates in town. And I'm not going to name names, but he's got some teammates in town from the LA Kings. We're like, okay. So we end up bumping into them. Didn't plan it. We knew they were in town. We ended up bumping into them at a nightclub at the Bellagio. And there was a guy on that team that was engaged to a famous person. Maybe people can figure it out. And this is not inside baseball. This is like my own experience. So if Jack, I think he's watching. Jack, don't be mad because I saw this. I'm not outing you. This was actually me witnessing this. But and had 3 women just like all over him, and he was wasted. And another guy on the team was just dancing up on everyone that he could find. And one of the guys on that team is playing blackjack. So we leave the club. We see him at the blackjack table at like 2:30 in the morning. We're like, we're done. We're just going to bed. We're exhausted. Like we were always kind of like old souls there. So we're packing it up at 2:30 in the morning. his teammate sitting at the blackjack table, just like hand on his face, just looks like I can barely. He's propping himself up with his fingers. He's exhausted. He's wasted. So we say hi to him, and then we go upstairs like, all right, we'll see ya. So 8:30, 9 o'clock the next morning, we pop up, time for the breakfast buffet. We only slept 5-6 hours, but we're good. We're ready to go. We're young, like 22, 23. And we're bumping. We go downstairs. Same exact blackjack table that we left this guy at, Jack's teammate. He's still there at an even more slumped position at the same table. And Jack goes up to him and says, "Did you ever leave?" He goes, "I got up twice to piss." That's exactly what he said. Yeah, I got up twice to piss. He goes, "I got to get out of here. It's wearing me out." So, I mean, I have other stories that Jack would decapitate me if I told, on a broadcast. But
you know what they say. What happens in Vegas?
Well, it's unfortunately stuff that I've seen happen in L.A. and stuff I've seen happen in a lot of cities, going to visit them. But, obviously boys are going to be boys in those pro leagues. And, even though I was a few years after you with my kind of dipping my toe in the scene, I wasn't ever in it the way you were. Mine was once a year, twice a year, traveling to see my buddy. You were in that every day. What was your experience with that NHL lifestyle? I know you're open about your own history, that you were a bit of a partier in your youth. Is that fair?
Yeah, I was an idiot.
Okay, well,
sure.
It's however you characterize it. So, I mean, were you ever like out with the boys drinking? Like, what was the NHL scene like for you in the 90s and early 2000s?
It was exactly what you think it was or would be. There were a lot of crazy nights, a lot of crazy events and instances, and I get asked all the time, are you going to write a book? Are you going to do it right? I could write a book, but I'm not going to write a fluff piece. You know what I mean? If I wrote a book, I want to write a book that's going to be truthful. Dr. Finley, Dr. John Finley, team physician, God bless his soul, great man. He wrote the book about, the Red Wings that, would be the PG or the G version. Mm-hmm. So I've just decided I'm probably not going to write that book because I don't think it would do. I don't think it would do anybody. The
you don't want to go there.
We share. I'm not going to go there. No, I've got, enough friends still in the game. But for people to think that, it's funny. The world that we live in, and the kind of the bubble, if that's a common expression today, but everybody thinks that it's one way, and it's so far different from that it's not even funny. So that team and that era probably, and I wasn't gifted the strong moral fortitude that I've acquired. So, I made a lot of mistakes. So my goal now is to help people, prevent people I'm close to and people that I want to succeed from making similar mistakes. So, but I'm an open book about that stuff. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty.
No nitty-gritty. Hey, can I have some nitty-gritty? Like, is there one nitty-gritty you can tell me? Like, I was out in, I don't know, Chicago one night. Like, at least give me this, because you can keep this general, because no city's going to get offended. Was there one place on the road, you're traveling all over the country, where you knew or the guys knew, like, okay, we're going to Toronto or wherever, like, parties on? Was there one kind of hot spot where you guys knew it was going to be crazy?
We, and Scotty knew this too. Well, Scotty knew, and that's why he made us stay in Secaucus, New Jersey. So when we would go to New York, we wouldn't stay in the city. He would make us, but a lot of guys would get hotel rooms at the W and stay in the city anyway.
Just on their own. Yeah.
They'd stay at the W, very close to Madison Square Garden, and just, so they couldn't be late for curfew if they weren't in that hotel. No,
that's fair. It's one way around.
Fair enough. L.A. was probably another one. Arizona, when they came into the league, a lot of guys were happy about, myself included, the warm weather. The Florida teams, that was, there's so many great cities in this country, and you can say what you want about whether or not they should have hockey teams, but for the most part, fans do support him, and the players like going to them. So
yeah, well, and there's some good options.
And then there's cities where guys would catch up on their sleep. Buffalo, Winnipeg.
Yeah, I've heard Winnipeg.
Edmonton. There's cities like that too.
A lot of northern, Canada and northern America. But anyway, I was dying to get some crazy stories out of you because I know they're in that brain of yours. But I understand the reticence.
They're in the vault.
I gotta say the Hasek one may have been worth the whole thing, though. It's just a fantastic story. Which I had not heard that. I had never heard that. I don't think we discussed that the last time because I would have remembered that.
Justin, I'm a new grandfather.
You are a new grandfather, so that's why you're tame.
As of April.
Congratulations to you. So is that why you're so tame?
I'm not going down that rabbit hole.
I gotta blame the kid then. All right, is boy, girl?
Little Henry.
All right, so I gotta blame Henry. So if you're mad for John Wharton's caginess on these answers, blame Henry, who I'm sure is a good little guy. But
he's awesome.
My wife's expecting a month from today. So
congratulations.
Thank you. So that'll be number 3 for us.
Awesome.
So I think we're just about worn out. I think she's done with it. So we have the easy part, right? But I want to talk a little bit about and this is backpedaling a little bit, but to Chris Ilitch. I believe you had a relationship with him that you were friendly at the time when you were there.
Yeah.
The perception is, not saying it's true, but the perception out there in Twitterland, which say what you want, it's there, is that he is cheap, that he is not to be trusted with the rebuild of the Tigers or the Red Wings, that he's never going to spend. Which he's openly said he's not going to spend like his father, but he's not going to spend at all, that these are going to be 2 budget organizations going forward. I know you don't know for a fact, but having known the man, been around him, grown with him, you're similar ages, I believe. What is your perception of Chris Ilitch? Do you, as the guy, what is he like as a guy, and do you think he's going to be true to his word?
I liked Chris Ilitch a lot. I helped he had some lower back issues, so he was usually at Joe Louis at 7:30 or 8 in the morning. He was one of my first
clients.
One of my first customers in the morning was Chris Ilitch, and on the Swiss ball and doing medicine ball and working on his core way back in the late 90s. And so I got to know him on a personal level, and I think he's a really good person. At that time he was running the Little Caesars pizza kits.
Still around.
You remember those things?
Yep, still around.
That was what Chris Ilitch was doing at the time, and he was obviously very successful at everything he's done. But that's what he was doing at the time. So I never knew him in a. Of course, he had leadership roles because anybody in that family had leadership roles back then. But I never saw him or really talked to him about him ending up where he is now and running the whole show and making all the decisions. So I can't speak to any of that. I really liked him. I really thought he was a good and genuine person. I can't say that about that entire family. I can say that about Chris. I think he was a really, really good guy.
Did you have issues with Mike or Marion?
Not until I tried to go into business with Mike.
You tried to. When was that? 2002?
That was in '97 when I opened the training room in Troy. It was going to be. I had spoken to him about becoming a financial partner. I needed some funding to build the training room at the Troy Sports Center in Troy, and then we ended up getting another one in Trenton. But obviously, I needed his money, so we went in a 50-50 deal. It was going to be my know-how, and he was going to fund it. And in training camp, I got a one-sentence fax from his attorney, Jay Bealfield, saying that he was no longer involved in the project and, remove Mike Ilitch's name from the training room and all the legal.
And you were already at least semi-deep, right?
I had put everything I had and taken out a second mortgage on my home for the build-out.
How did you stay 5 more years?
Well,
I know it's a great job, but my God.
Preceding that, in the build-up and the negotiations, as part of our 50-50 deal, I negotiated a 5-year contract. This was in '97. I negotiated a 5-year deal that almost tripled my salary because I was at one point making $34,000 in 1995, I think.
And you were back then, for those that don't know you, because you were a different era for, we have a lot of people in their 20s that watch. Yeah. Like, you were considered, a lot of people remember Arnie Kander for the Pistons. You were considered one of the premier trainers in the sport at that time, where you had features done on you on like Past Sports, and there were articles written about your techniques, and so you were a very well respected guy. Just to give the context of your position, well, it's just true. Yeah. For the people that don't know, you were not just some Sally Pink Pants fill in the blank trainer. You were one of the considered elite trainers just by your peers at that time. Just to color that in. Yeah. So that's where we're at in '97.
Yeah, I was in the right place at the right time, but I was doing the right thing. That's the third element of being successful that a lot of people want to leave out, and they're like, "Oh, you were in the right place at the right time." Yeah, but I was also doing the right thing.
Right.
And I was a little bit ahead of, some of the games in my studies in strength and conditioning. I was the first, certified strength and conditioning coach in the NHL, and now everybody has 5 degrees, and we can talk about the overemphasis on medical attention as another topic. But
I want to get to that next.
So Mr. Ilitch, as part of my training room deal, I had negotiated a big jump in salary with a new contract, 5 years, that ended in 2002. So when Mr. Ilitch backed out, I'm like, well, what do I do now? Well, I went to Scotty Bowman, Igor Larionov, and Slava Koslov. Took Mr. Ilitch's financial positions in the training room. And we opened it, and it was successful. And I got another fax from Jay Bealfield after he was no longer involved in the training room, wanting to revert to my previous contract. And I said, no.
Rescind the raise?
Yeah. I said, no, that's not happening.
Why? How is that even a discussion? Like, who would even?
So when that happened, and I in my exit interview, I put a tape recorder in
97 or 02?
In 02.
In 02.
I wanted it on record because there were a lot of rumors about why I was done with the team, and my personal problems weren't it.
Yeah.
It was the fact, and I have Kenny Holland verbatim saying, you were done in the Detroit Red Wings organization the day you decided to go into business with Mike Ilitch. So, I knew, like you mentioned, the 2002 championship, and I'll never forget standing on that ice.
Make sure you're talking to that mic there, John.
I'll never forget standing on that ice and just absorbing all that confetti and all that energy from that crowd, because I knew it was the last time I was going to set foot on that ice.
So did you knew in '97 that I'm going to finish this 5 years is a long time. I mean, you get guys that are pissed. Andre Drummond wanted out maybe, but he's for the Pistons, but he's got 15 months left when he realized it. Knowing that you're going to be gone in 5 years, that's a long time. Did you see him? I mean, in the hallway at any point? Was there any awkwardness with Mike? I can't believe Mike Ilitch screwed you on a deal. I'd never do that story either.
It's always awkward around Mr. Ilitch. He's a powerful and a very enigmatic man. So he had an energy around him. So when he walked into a room, our room especially, the seas would part.
Yeah.
So I just, the amount of money that we're talking about is minuscule now, and it was minuscule then
to him.
So as long as so he let me live out that contract, but wasn't going to extend it, and I knew that. I had talked to Kenny Holland about that, and that might be part of the reason why I got into some personal issues with myself, because I didn't want it to end. I wanted to stay there. I wanted to be there for
one of the coolest jobs.
It was a great job. So I was kind of, that last year I was really feeling it, and so that probably had some impact on some poor decisions on my part. And I'm not blaming anybody for them but myself. I take full ownership of my bad decisions, 100%. But I think that he, as a professional, Mike Ilitch saw the job that I was doing and decided that, as long as we're still winning and our injury books are still as low as they are, and we went through the the first Stanley Cup run, and we had 1 man game lost. Joey Coaster had back spasms in Game 4 in Anaheim.
Which is like nothing. I have back spasms from sitting here talking to you.
1 man game loss in a
nothing.
20-game run in the NHL playoffs where you're playing every other night for 2 months. That will never happen again. It hadn't happened since. The following year in '98, we had 5-man games lost. So,
hence the buzz around you, John, that I talked about. Why you had a lot of eyes on you in a good way.
We had a lot of luck. I'll guarantee you that.
Modest,
we had
too.
That's
very nice.
We had a lot of
you were good at what you did, though, and you had good practices.
I was prepared. My youngest son in '96 would have been 3, and he had a flu. He had one of those just projectile flus, and he was dehydrated. And we went to the doctor, and he gave him Pedialyte, and he responded like that. So I immediately took that. I went to practice, and I was like, we're gonna travel in playoffs with 3 cases of Pedialyte in case we go into overtime. So it was just little things like that, and guys were drinking Pedialyte between periods, and so we weren't getting IV bags. So having fruit, and also when we started getting the Russian players, I would sit with Igor Larionov. I would take him to lunch and pick his brain about Russian training methods, so that I could bring those to the rest of the team. So, in the late '90s, we were one of the first teams doing box training and plyometrics. And so if I was good at anything, it was about being diligent, about picking other people's brains, about looking at the science, knowing what the science was, studying the human body like a machine. It's the greatest machine ever. So if I was good at anything, it was all that stuff. It was just being a detail-oriented. And we did have a lot of luck. We were very fortunate because you can do all that stuff that I said, and then somebody can run into a goalpost and blow their knee out.
It doesn't matter.
So it doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you take the right blow, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. So, and then we also had a very tough team. We had a lot of guys who played with a lot of things. So to say that we didn't have any injuries, we lost 1 man game to injury, but there wasn't a guy in that team that wasn't hurt.
Right.
They just, that's hockey. That's hockey.
They
played with that.
What's the difference that you see? Because you've been outspoken about it in the past. Between your era and what we're seeing now, you've taken some umbrage with how teams, maybe not just in the NHL, but in pro sports in general, are handling their training. And what's your issue? Where do you stand on that?
I think the outside influence has gotten very loud. So now if you look at, I'll take the Red Wings because they're the closest example to us. If you go online and look at the medical staff, there's 8 people listed on the medical staff before you even get to the doctors. We're talking about Director of Health and Human Performance, 2 athletic therapists, 2 strength coaches, 2 massage therapists, Barless, by the way. 2 massage therapists, a physical therapist, and a dietitian. So those 8 people were doing what myself and Sergei Chekmarov were doing in '96.
But you think that's a bad thing?
I do, because the more attention you give something, the more attention it needs. So, and all those people, while extremely qualified, extremely good people, they've all got to justify their salary. So the more influence and the more directions you're coming at a guy, the more he has to deal with, and the less focused he can be on playing hockey. I just think, and it's 100% my opinion. I think when you have 25 guys and you have 3 people doing athletic therapy or athletic training, a strength and conditioning coach, and massage therapist, that as opposed to 9 people, it's just a lot of chefs in there.
There's a lot of cooks in that kitchen.
A lot of cooks in there.
But this is interesting, John.
And I think there's just, I'll say it again, the more attention you give something, the more attention it needs. So yeah. You're seeing, and I understand the liability and the insurance and all this and covering. You have to hire that guy and this girl, and we have to cover that base so that we're not sued. I totally get that.
But from a practical standpoint.
And I think you see it in the injury reports week in and week out, and not just in hockey, but in all of sports. There's just an overemphasis on. There's a lack of keeping it simple, and there really was a keep it simple method, back in my day, where we knew what we had to do, and we knew how to focus, and we knew the science, and we knew what equipment we needed, and Mr. Illich would give us whatever we wanted. But now it's you've got $2 and $5 million facilities that are gathering a lot of dust, and I don't know if the science and all of the push behind all of the overemphasis on medicine is justified when you look at the man games lost and you look at the injury reports. Like, where are the outcomes? What are the results?
Yeah, if you're focusing on the end result, it's interesting.
Which you should be.
Yeah, I mean, that's what really matters, other than staying out of court like you alluded to. But we've had, on this show, you being one of them, but we've had 2 world-class trainers as guests on the show. You being one, the other being Mike Barwis, who you talked about, Director of Human Performance for the Red Wings. He has that title. And
immensely talented.
Oh, very smart guy, great guy too. I mean, he was just one of my favorite guests on the show, and great feedback on his visit as well. But he has the story which he didn't talk about on the show. But when Yzerman called him, well, let's back up. Steve Yzerman is hired, or being negotiated to be hired by the Detroit Red Wings, and he's talking to Chris, and they have an understanding that this is going forward. This is what Steve wants. They want each other. It's just the logistics are being worked out. So Steve takes a tour of the facility in Detroit, the brand new facility, LCA, and obviously beautiful. But he says, okay, let me see your roster, like if the staff that we have, training, dietitians, all the stuff you mentioned and more. And he thought that the list was way too short and that their equipment was extremely lacking. And he talked to Barwis. He calls Mike Barwis. He wanted him. And Barwis flies in, checks out all the scene, and agrees with Steve, saying that you guys are like way behind. You're 10 years behind everybody else. And Barwis said, I will only come here. And Steve had a general thing where I need a commitment on a number of levels, which Chris made to him. But Barwis said, I'm not coming unless you spend X amount. I need 7 of this machine, 5 of that machine. Right. I need at least 4 massage therapists. So it's funny, you guys are both brilliant in that field, and it's just he has a total different view where he wants to have 100 cooks in the kitchen. It's
completely philosophical.
Yeah, it's just interesting.
Yeah, I think I think healers are healers, and I do think that they are God-given. You're born with healing abilities, and I think you either have them or you don't. It's not something you can learn or you can teach. I think I was blessed with those on some limited value, but it's a philosophical way to look at it. I think you talked about all that expense and all those bodies and all that energy. Like, show me the injury reports.
Wings were banged up all year. I'm not saying that as an indictment on Mike, but if you're looking at the end result to what you were saying, the Red Wings were banged up all year. I mean, Mike Green couldn't stay on the ice for 5 minutes.
And I'm not saying saying anything against what Mike Barwis is doing.
No, neither am I.
Maybe there's 4 or 3 other people that don't need to be doing what they're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's just there's so many moving parts now that it's hard to keep up with, and it's hard to. It's really, you talk about analytics in sports, so you can basically trace every statistic to an analytic, or there's an analytic for everything that happens on the field or on the ice. You should be able to do the same thing with your medical staff. How many, with what you're doing, how many man games of injury per year are you? That would be like the WAR stat.
Yes.
Yep. Wins above replacement. Yep. So, as part of that staff, how much of what you are contributing can we trace to the end result, or the ultimate outcome, which is keeping healthy players on the ice producing at top level? So, until you can find a way to measure all that, I think that there's a lot of superfluous superfluousness going around, if that's a word.
Superfluous is, yeah.
I think there's a lot of CYA. I'm sure you know what that is.
Yes.
And there's a lot of outside influence with players bringing their own trainers in, their own nutritionists, their own, TB12 and all
most
that
famous
whole
example.
thing. Yeah, it's there's just so much of it. There's just so much of it, and I think it's become detrimental to the outcomes.
Well, and your outcomes kind of did speak for themselves. I mean, obviously the man games loss being the key one. I mean, at the end of the day, like even if I'm just a cold-hearted son of a bitch, I'm the owner or the coach, I just want my horses on the ice. I mean, even if they have some limitations, it's like who doesn't, especially at the end of a long season, you're deep into the playoffs. It's like, I don't care if Eisman's limping around, like, get your ass out there. I'm saying if I'm that cold-hearted asshole,
you're right.
Like, I want John Wharton as my guy, above anyone, because you're going to keep him on the ice and, at least functioning.
And we were, with an older team, I was writing up fake injury reports to rest guys.
Really?
So that we could peak,
You were, that's right, because you were the rest
Larry
guy.
Murphy, Larry Onoff, Fetisov. We had guys that were way up in age.
Yep.
And our if you look at a periodization chart for a marathon runner, their goal is Boston.
Yep.
So everything they do goes up to whatever day
peaking
in
at
the
that
spring
moment
in Boston.
Yep.
Peaking at that moment. When I told Scotty, I said, ours is the first week in June. It's not getting to the end. It's not making the playoffs. It's not the end of May. It's the first week of June is our peak. So the way we do that, we don't have the luxury of sitting guys during a 2-month grind every other day. We've got to find 8, 10, 12 game blocks where Larry Murphy can sit for 6 of those, where Nick Lidstrom, who's going to log a shit ton of hours, not minutes, a shit ton of hours of ice time, we got to sit him for 4 games. Nick was never hurt. God bless him. He's just a machine. But he was hurt on my books because we sat him, and so we had to get Scotty, in line with that line of thinking. But once he saw it in '97, he was like, yeah, we gotta.
It's incredible he trusted you, like just because to defer to anybody and that point, and he was the de facto GM of that team by all accounts too. I mean, he was the one that was almost trading eyes,
pulling the strings.
Yeah, he was driving the bus. So I don't want to be abusive of your time. I want to finish. I don't normally do the gimmick thing, John, but we talked about a little lightning round. Can you handle a little lightning round?
A little lightning round.
So this is old school radio. We're not normally old school radio, but we're going to like the stuff they were teaching me in journalism school to be on the radio. We're going to do a fun little thing. It's just going to be, what's the first thing that comes to mind when I say fill in the blank, okay? So I'm just going to rattle them off. You don't have to say one word, but a sentence or two max, and we'll rip through these. You ready? You feel good?
I'm scared.
You got enough gas in the tank? Well, one, 2, 3 sentences. Okay. Steve Yzerman, what do you think?
Toughness, leadership, and toughness. I don't think he's wired the same way as all of us from a afferent, efferent wiring system. The message that you're getting from an injury.
Oh, we're getting technical.
It's not making it to his brain because that guy was so tough, and I was like, how are you playing with that?
That knee injury in 02 was nuts.
So toughness.
Toughness, leadership. Scotty Bowman, what do you think?
Smart and manipulative.
In a good way or in a bad way?
Depends on who you are. Ask Sean, God bless Sean Burr, one of my favorite people. Rest in peace. Ask Dino Cicerelli. Ask Paul Coffey.
What about Martin LaPointe?
Martin LaPointe?
Yeah.
Funny.
He was always the one sane in the doghouse, though. I was talking about in relation to Bowman, though.
Marty LaPointe, my third son, Drake was just born, so I wasn't there. And Marty went and told the media that, and they had to call me to confirm that my son was Demetrius. So he made up this, I don't even remember what the middle name Marty gave Helena St. James or what. They're calling me like, is this really your son's name? We got to confirm. I'm like, who told you that? I was like, Marty. So Marty was funny.
Famous for taking bad penalties, but just honestly an underrated guy, too. He took so much shit. It's like the guy was, he was a banger and he scored 20 goals a year. What do you want from the poor guy? Yeah, he got shit on a little bit too much, but he did take some bad penalties in the playoffs, let's face it. Yeah. Colorado Avalanche, not now, back then.
Just hatred. I mean, I can't look at you. You a truck guy? Do you drive a pickup?
I drive a pickup. I do.
You
Dodge
realize that the two ugliest trucks on the road are the Colorado and the Avalanche? And there's no coincidence there
They
whatsoever.
are. Yeah, I'm a Ram guy, so
Those
you're not making
things
fun
are
of me.
Disgusting. But
They're like those old Aztecs.
That team, I despise them with that stupid, whatever.
Even today, looking back, you hate them.
Purple and blue and gray, whatever those jerseys are with that clown logo. I can't stand them.
One of the worst uniforms in the league, by the way.
Yeah,
I hate their uniform. I always have.
Still don't like the Avalanche.
Chris Osgood, what do you think?
Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
I think Chris Osgood is the ultimate line where it's like if you are even 1 ounce better than Chris Osgood, if you're even like half of 1% better than Chris Osgood, that you're definitely a Hall of Famer.
He's top 10 in wins.
I know, but it's like you're getting like goalie wins. Look at the team around him. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying I always considered him kind of like right at the line where I think you could go either way. It's like an old Detroit sports radio topic.
I remember our very first training camp up in Flint. It was our last year in Flint. Was Chris Osgood's first. One of our last year was Chris Osgood's rookie year, and 2 or 3 tests into the 12 or 14 battery of tests, he asked for a bucket because he puked. But then went on to become Mr. Fitness because we'd pass out conditioning awards. So he came to us this real scrawny, meek little kid. But by the time, I don't know if you saw him, at the peak of his career, he had a body on him. He really worked it and became one of the Mr. Fitnesses on the Red Wings. So
much better body than Jimmy Howard. If anyone's seen Jimmy Howard, the guy's like 287 pounds.
Too.
Hasek? Hasek was small, wasn't he?
Noodles in a suit.
Well, he was skinny. Jimmy Howard was fat. Yeah. I'm just going the other way. Different bodies. But I was going to say, Hasek wasn't fat.
There's Beer Can, Mike Vernon.
Well,
I was nickname because
let's get to him now. He was on the list.
He drank a lot of them, and he had a body shaped like one.
He did not look like a pro athlete. You look like you see Mike Vernon.
Guy,
those pictures of Mike Vernon holding the Conn Smythe Trophy on the ice in '97. It looks like somebody like snuck in from the stands, put on a hockey uniform, and lifted the trophy. The guy just does not look like a professional athlete. You talk about bad bodies in pro sports. Yeah. Alexander Ovechkin looks like he's
my favorite player right now.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah. His game is beyond reproach, but he's got the worst body in the league.
I predict he will sign here as a free agent.
Really? When's he even coming up?
Next year.
Is he really?
Yeah.
I'm behind the times.
He's got one more. Well, he's got the COVID year, and he's got next year, and then he's
that would be interesting.
UFA.
That would be kind of like a throwback Red Wing thing. That would get people believing, even if he is at the tail end. The guy could
from my mouth to Ovi's agent.
So I hope it happens. Detroit. I hope it happens. So a little bit of a curveball. Donald Trump. First thing that comes to mind.
Convicted. I know a lot of people would want to say as a felon.
Technically not true.
I really do believe that he is as convicted as an American. He cares deeply about this country. I'll just leave it at that.
Not a charlatan. You think he's a true believer, and like him or hate him, he's not a phoney.
I do.
He's himself.
I do. And a success, an American success story. And everyone's like, the guy's an idiot. And I said, you mean the billionaire who the first time he ever ran for any office ever, he became the most powerful person in the free world?
Highest rated reality show at the time. I don't know if he's since lost that title,
idiot?
But yeah,
that idiot.
He's done a lot of good things for whatever you.
So I would say convicted and very smart.
And it's funny because I remember the other side. Republicans were always saying like what a moron Obama was, and it's like whatever you can say about him. Guy was
not stupid.
Editor for the Harvard Law Review. Yeah. Just let's take it easy with the.
You can call these people a lot of names, but when they go down the intelligence. Lane. I'm
it's
out.
A bad lane.
Yeah, it's a bad lane.
Yeah. Let's stay on Spiro Avenue, not the IQ lane with these presidents that are all graduates of these higher institutions of higher learning. Bob Probert, where do you stand on him? Rest in peace again.
Probably one of my favorite people.
Deeply flawed personally.
Deeply flawed, so I can relate to that aspect of Bob. we shared some of the similar addictions. He was able to beat his, and then ultimately didn't get to enjoy the life with his family and kids that I'm getting. So it in that way it's tragic, but no better teammate, no better friend, and I think if you ask Danny and his kids, no better family man.
Nick Lidstrom.
I don't think there's any such thing as a perfect human, so I don't aspire to that nickname. I think they gave that to Nick because he was so much to so many in so many ways. Class act, one of the classiest people I've ever been around.
And was he one of the three or four best guys?
Defenseman.
I mean, he's one of the 3 or 4 best guys you ever saw on those teams.
I think he's the best defenseman I ever saw play.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I was the little guy when Bobby Orr was around, but easily the best defenseman.
Sean Avery. Where do you guys stand on Sean Avery? You only had him for what, a year?
Shit disturber.
Shit disturber.
Yeah, that's when
you didn't. Is that you didn't like him, or is that endearing?
I liked him.
Was he a shit starter right away, or did he have to?
He was goofy, but he was funny. He was also, Stevie would have to talk to him because he became a distraction with the sideshow. He was perfect in New York and ended up having a great career with the sideshow with Andy Cohen and all that, and the internship at Vogue or whatever.
Yeah. He's a fashion guy. He has the best Instagram feed ever.
Prada. Yeah.
Have you ever seen his Instagram feed where he's going around New York on his bike?
Yeah. No, that's him. There's nothing made up there.
There's no presentation. That's the guy.
That's 100% authentic.
It's absolutely. If anyone is, if you're not like on Instagram, get on Instagram. Follow Sean Avery. It's like the most hilarious thing. He just drives around New York on his bicycle and will scream at people for like parking in the wrong spot or just goes, "What the fuck are you doing?"
He was a distraction, and Stevie would have to.
Not a fit there. That's not a fit. No. They don't tolerate that stuff there in Steve Yzerman's locker room.
They don't like distractions.
No. So we already did Vernon. That was going to be my next one, but you already tackled him. Joe Louis Arena.
I've always said this. Like when I die, if I die in a car accident, I don't want I drive down the road and I see, a cross with I don't want a memoriam where I died.
Yep.
I want people to go and visit where I lived, and unfortunately they can't. And Joe Louis will, it will always be a home away from home. I would go there when I didn't have to go there just because of the environment and because of the energy. Even after the cheering stopped, that energy that those fans left in that building stayed, and I would run those steps up and down, up and down, up and down, and I will miss that place until I suffer the same fate. But you can call it a shithole. You can everything's done because we need suites and we need great restrooms and this and that. But that was home. And unfortunately, when I'm gone, now I'm building stuff, and people can go and spend some time in the places where I lived. The bathrooms that I renovate, the kitchens, the basements that I'm refurbishing. Those are places that I'm living now. But I've never lived anywhere like I lived at Joe Louis Arena.
I called it, in an endearing fashion, the delightful dump. Like, it smelled terrible. It was horrible.
But it was ours.
But there were so many good memories there. And it's like, if I could choose right now to go to a game like with my buddies at either Joe Louis or Little Caesars Arena, I would take Joe Louis 100 times out of 100 just for the 100%. Environment there. If I'm taking my wife and kids, maybe I drift towards the glitzy and the glamour.
Yeah.
We're going out to dinner before and whatever, which I get. And there's something to be said for that. The thing with the Joe is, it's just crazy to think. I believe it opened in 1980. I don't know if you even know, but 1979, 1980.
79, 80, yeah.
Yeah, that 79, 80 season. And Shutters 27 years later, I believe it was. That would be like Comerica Park.
37.
Did I just screw that up? 37. That would be like Comerica Park being more than halfway done with its lifespan. Right. Yeah. Thank you for being here to correct my math. My goodness.
The Palace is a tragedy to me. I don't know how they
Do you know what that did to my property value here,
You could
John?
have gifted that to OU. You could have done so many things with that building to just pains me.
This studio that we're sitting in, which is in my basement, is fewer than 2 miles away. I mean, you could like walk to the Palace if you had maybe a bottle of water with you.
Yep.
Nothing. And great arena. They had spent all this money renovating it like 2 years before they shut it down. I mean, they completely redid the lower bowl seating, big fancy leather seats, big new scoreboard, which is in some other arena. They ended up selling it to, I think, a university or something. Yeah. But just a total waste. But like going back to the Joe, the history that you have there is not something that I think is transferred when you move. I mean, you can look at the banners in the sky at LCA, but like they weren't won there. And I know Gordy didn't play at the Joe either. I mean, I think 1 year in an All-Star game or something at the end. But I get that. But like I just feel
it transcends. It's not just hockey. It's all the friends, the gray coats, and unfortunately, I did CPR on two of CPR? The ushers that didn't make it. So, we literally, people that worked there literally lived and died there. And, I'll never forget the Steve Yzerman's overtime goal against St. Louis. I walked off the bench that night in May and got a note from a gray coat stand that my wife was in labor. She couldn't, first overtime put her in labor.
Oh, my God.
So 5 hours after that game, my daughter was born. My son Luke grew up in that locker room, with Brendan Shanahan, but behind the curtain on, we'd call it Kids Day, but on the off day, and he'd be behind the curtain going, "Luke, I am your father."
Yes.
I can't even do it now, but he would do his Darth Vader.
Yeah,
and he's like,
yeah.
"Oh," and he's like, "No, you're not. No, this is my dad."
And how old was your kid at that point?
Luke was 4.
Oh, man, that's so cool. I was at that game, that Yzerman game, that overtime goal. That was my first playoff game ever with my dad. I was 9 years old. Yeah, there's so many memories there.
Yeah, my daughter was born 5 hours after that puck hit the back of the net.
Ridiculous shot too. You go
crazy.
And I love that.
Poor little John Casey. We're blessed. Grant Fuhr was injured.
Yeah, well, that wasn't Casey's fault though. He had a shutout going in. He had a shut. The goal was.
If it would have hit him, it would have went right through him.
He had a shutout going into the second overtime though. I mean, I know Yzerman ended it like a minute or two into the second OT, but
snipe.
I don't care. You can give up the worst goal in the world. If you lose 1-0 in double overtime, I'm never blaming the goalie. I don't care what happens on the one goal. It's like, hey, assholes.
I forgot the score. I'll be honest with you.
Bro, it was 1-0.
The score was.
It was a dueling shutouts, and Carey had sort of the better of the two. I mean, had more shots against him and more action on his end. I mean, I remember that game vividly now, even looking back. But, I mean, yeah, he was not the problem in that game. But, yeah, just brutal goal and should not have been playing. I mean, Fuhr was hurt, like you mentioned. I don't know if you remember that play. That whole play happens because Wayne Gretzky kind of fucked up in the neutral zone, and this puck flipped over his stick, and he looked like he was giving it the old college try. I don't know if it was the old "I'm 38" in double overtime try. Yeah, but
they call that a lookout block in football.
A lookout block.
Lookout.
Yeah. I haven't heard that one, but that's actually quite applicable. It's that was so. It's just the fact that like Gretzky fucked up that play, which just made it even better. Right. Gretzky on that.
But the Joe. There's so much. There's just the concerts and just all the events and the surrounding area and watching that grow up, and the riverfront apartments where Osgood and Draper and McCarty and those guys all had apartments, and we took the Stanley Cup, and it's like I said, it was the most important home that I knew during that period of my life, and I'm bummed that I won't get to go and hang out and see it, but I'll never forget it. I'll never forget that place.
Last one, best night from 1990 to 2002 in your professional life. What was the best night professionally?
It had to be June 7th, 1997, ending that 42-year drought with and. The 2 years or 1 or 2 years that we won the President's Trophy and got knocked out in the first round, and Lisa Yzerman sitting in Dr. Finley's office till 3-4 in the morning consoling her husband, just all all the work and all, especially on Stevie's part and Mr. Illich's and the Illich family's part to build up to that moment, and then for it to all release and finally, finish that off. It's probably that night. And what makes it's also what makes June 13th the absolute worst of that entire time. And 6 days later, it's
what happened?
I went from the best day
to the worst.
That entire era to the absolute worst day in that entire era in the matter of a week. So it's
the Konstantinov accident. For those that don't know, I think most people know where you're going with this if they're still with us at this point. But yeah, I mean, Vladimir Konstantinov's career and frankly, not technically life, but the life as he knew it as a functioning human 100%. Being cut short. Yep. That was such a crazy time. I mean, I remember there were stories of, Konstantinov was sitting with a bunch of tubes in him at Beaumont Hospital here in Royal Oak down the street. And people are sneaking in like phony FedEx packages, just like fans, like trying to get to see him and stuff. And it's like, that was the most bizarre time. People were just so thrown for that. I don't know what you think. Like, okay, you get in, you're going to see this guy laying in a hospital bed. Like, they're not going to sign anything for you. But
no, it was weird.
It was the most traumatizing thing. And I was 10 years old at the time, and it's like, you're trying to figure out what happened there. But it's just, that was terrible. So that was, you had kind of, is that the worst night, would you say? I mean, you're
not even close.
It's interesting that you had a 12-year career and your best night and your worst night were 6 days
within
apart.
A week. Yeah.
You said something interesting about Dr. Finley. I was going to end, but I got to dive into it for a minute. Yeah. Dr. Finley consoling Steve Yzerman with his wife.
No, he was in Dr. Finley's office, which was off of the medical room. It was a small, probably an 8x12
96 after the Avalanche knocked him out?
No, it would have been Jamie Baker's goal.
94?
94. It would have been who scored the Toronto goal. That wasn't Bob Rouse, was it? It was.
I can't remember.
So, those.
So there were multiple times where
where she, she would come down, and he's, like I said, I didn't hesitate to describe, the word that described Steve Yzerman was toughness. But in those moments where he had put so much, and for it to end that way was just completely crushing to him. So, going through all those times, and then with the Illiches and, everything that Mr. I did for that team to give us everything that we could possibly ask for with the plane, with the talent, with the equipment, with everything, so to see that come through for those two men, it was awesome.
It was a sense of just breakthrough and relief, and I remember seeing that in my own dad, who at the time had never seen them win and was a diehard fan and was there for all the lean years. And I remember he said the first time he had cried since he was a kid. He was at the time 47. So I mean, just an incredible moment for so many people. I didn't really have a frame of reference. They were good. I started becoming a fan when I was like 6. They were good every year, and then they won 4 years later. So
I'll leave you with one more story.
Go ahead. I'll keep you here till 2 a.m., John. I'm trying to be courteous and respectful of your time. And poor Ben over here.
I've always wanted to tell this story. So we win in 97. We win in 98. 99, we go up 2-0 to Colorado. We win the first 2 games in Colorado. Remember who the goalie was?
David Abisher?
Bill Ranford.
Oh, the goalie for Detroit.
Correct.
That they had just gotten him
because Ozzy got hurt.
That was the Wendell Clark year too, right?
Yep.
That's right. They traded for Wendell Clark and Bill Ranford.
So we go up 2-0. We're on the flight home, and Bill Ranford calls me back to the plane, and he says, "Johnny, I'm done." I'm like, "What are you talking about, Billy?" He's like, "Physically, mentally, emotionally, I got nothing. I'm done." So I'm thinking in my mind as I'm walking up to the plane to see Scotty and Ken Holland, I tap Norm Miracle on the shoulder. I'm like, "You might want to get your head in this. You might."
Were you the first one to tell him that something was awry above him on the depth chart?
So I go up and I tell Scott, I was sitting, I'm like, he's like, "How's everybody doing?" Because I usually on the flight home, I'd give an injury update. I said, "Billy Ranford is not good." "What are you talking about? He looks spectacular." I was like, "He just told me He's physically, emotionally, and mentally done. You got to think about putting Norm Miracle in Game 3. They both started laughing at me like I had like a head growing out of the side of my neck or something. They're like, that's not happening. So Bill Ranford played, and he played awful.
In Game 3,
had to rush
was that back in Detroit then?
3 and 4, and we rushed Ozzy back 5 and 6, and he's playing on us. So obviously we lose in 4 straight, where I think if we would have taken the chance and just put Normie in and given him that one shining moment, if you want to go Jim Nantz here.
Teams catch lightning in a bottle all the time in that.
It would have shocked the world. So I think we rode the Bill Ranford bus in 2 games, 2 victories out of Colorado, as far as we should have ridden that bus. We should have given the keys to Norm Miracle and possibly three-peated.
I can't believe
But I've never told that story.
He hits you with the triple threat of I'm physically, emotionally, and mentally done.
All of it.
Just done.
He said, Johnny, I got nothing left.
you have a pulse, but that's about it.
He said, I got nothing left. I'm done.
Based on what? Just he was tired? He was dejected? I don't get that.
Yeah, well, he's come to a team that has just won back-to-back.
Yeah.
And he's pulled off 2 in the main rival's building.
Yeah.
In Colorado.
Yeah.
He's won 2 games.
Yep.
So now he's like, oh, man, I don't know what else I can do.
That's so bizarre.
I've never told that story, but I really think if Normie would have got the tap on the shoulder for even just Game 3 to give Billy that physical, emotional, and mental blow and put him back in for Game 3 and let Ozzy heal some more for the finals, that we could have gotten out of that round.
You can see why it was considered ludicrous at the time, though.
100%.
Like, you're in that moment. You're up 2-0.
I still think
this is the guy you traded for,
right?
And
he's won 2 straight, and he's not injured.
Yeah,
he's just physically, emotionally, and mentally done.
Right. He's just fried,
that's
crazy to me.
So that's my potential three-peat story is maybe, and Normie could have went in there and lost 10-0.
Yeah, who knows? No one knows what happens if you go through door number 2. You may have just pitched the worst idea in the world. Who knows? But
nobody knows. But that's the only time that a player ever told me that he was physically, emotionally, and mentally done.
So we've been at it.
So it was my job to pass that info on to coaching and management, and I did.
That's their call.
And I got laughed off the plane.
I probably would have laughed at you too, just in the context of that moment. But the question is, after almost 2 hours, are you physically, mentally, and emotionally done? Are you just cooked?
I have no idea. Goalies are a different breed. You'll have to get Bill Ranford in here.
I'll ask Bill Ranford. Maybe Bill
Great
Ranford can give me 2 hours on the podcast. So, John, you're the best. I was glancing over my notifications are just blowing up with my friends saying how great you did, and appreciate your time. And I'm hoping I can drag you back, because I could keep you here till 2 or 3 in the morning and just keep pulling stories out of you.
I'm probably not gonna write the book, Justin. So I might as well just
write the book here.
Read it to you.
Yeah, read me the book. I want to hear all the stories.
Yeah.
I mean, there were things we talked about before, going into the show that we didn't even get into, just sake of time and getting poor Ben out of here.
Yeah.
Man, you were awesome. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Love to have you back.
Nice to meet you, Ben.
A pleasure.
Thank you.
And this has been a big night for you. Your first night running the board. Are you still breathing over there, Ben Augusta?
Trying.
You're trying to breathe.
A couple of mix-ups, but overall, good job.
Yeah.
Good job.
Oh, good. Good
wonderful
job.
interview by both of you gentlemen, for sure.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, John, it's a real pleasure. This has been the Spiro Avenue Show with John Wharton. Go follow this guy on Twitter at Johnny Wharton. I hope he doesn't get canceled before we have him back on. Even if you do get canceled, John, you're welcome here anytime. I know you're an opinionated guy, but I'll never cancel you. You're welcome here anytime. Good friend of mine, John Wharton. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And, Ben, I want to wrap with a little mention of our wonderful sponsor, the Michigan Peddler. They have been a supporter of us from day one with this new endeavor. One of the highest rated companies in all of Michigan in any genre on Google, the Michigan Peddler. They are fantastic. They have those awesome bikes. I've done them actually in Chicago. I'm dying to get on Michigan Peddler's bikes. They are just incredible. I always see them buzzing around Detroit. They actually, I believe, are running right now, but if you want to wait a little bit, totally get it. They are churning. They have enough to sponsor this little show, so they're doing okay somehow. So check them out, the Michigan Peddler. Great guys over there, big supporters of the show, and I appreciate if you support them in any way you can to thank them, helping us bring this content to you. This has been Justin Spiro for the Spiro Avenue Show, one of my favorites ever, just like it was the first time. John Wharton's the man, great guy. Just a fun 2 hours. Looking forward to having him back. Thank you for tuning in. This has been Spiro Avenue, Justin Spiro with Ben Augusta behind the board. Back home in his boxers on his couch, Roberto Bastian, who was our backup to the backup, and John Wharton, kind enough to give us a lot of his time tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time, which won't be long, tomorrow with Chris Castellani, who is, in fact, not too famous to appear with me talking Tigers. We thought he might be. He is not, in fact, too cool for school as we had once thought. Thank you, Spiro Avenue, Justin Spiro. Catch you tomorrow. Thank you.